Throughout our Israel series so far, we've been talking about places that we know for sure historical things have happened. However, there are a lot of different places within Israel that we know for sure something didn't happen, or it's kind of a toss-up. We're not exactly sure. So how do we differentiate these different types of sites? Well, for us during this Israel series, we're gonna do it like this. An A site is a site that we know for sure this thing happened there, either historically or biblically or whatever else. We know that it happened there. It's like a 99% chance that this is the place. Then a B site is somewhere that we're not 100% sure. Maybe it's 60%, maybe it's 50%. There's a lot of evidence, but we're not 100% sure that it could be exactly here. Then a C location would be, yeah, it probably didn't happen here. There might be some evidence, but yeah, really this is just a claim that something happened here. So today we're actually gonna be looking at our first site that is not an A site. Now this video is our first example of a B site. This is the Mount of Beatitudes, and behind me is the Church of the Beatitudes. This is an area where they believe the Sermon on the Mount happened. And it's really interesting and fun to look at in terms of historical, archaeological, and really traditional evidence overall. But this is what we would call a B site, meaning we don't exactly know where Jesus stood or what happened, but this could definitely be the location of the Sermon on the Mount. So far, we've only really looked at A sites, places that we know are the location that we're saying that it is. Things that happen there historically, even outside of the Bible, that really help us to pinpoint these locations. However, this is a location in which really we don't 100% know. So why do we call this the Mount of Beatitudes, or the place where the Sermon on the Mount happened? Well, let's break it down, because it comes down to about 3 or 4 factors. But before we get to that, let's jump into our maps and talk about exactly where this location is. We're talking about the northeastern portion of the Sea of Galilee, up into the hills quite a bit. This is an overlook over the Sea of Galilee, and you have an amazing point of view from here. To give you another perspective, here's a photo from Capernaum looking up at the Church of the Beatitudes. So you can see how a ton of people would be able to fit on this hill here. Now, as you'll be able to see, obviously this church, as you'll see all over Israel, is controlled by the Catholic Church. You can see nuns that live here and work here, and they take care of and make sure that everything is good here on the Mount of Beatitudes. This is a very common thing because the Catholic Church bought up a ton of this land out here, and they're the ones that are cultivating it and making sure that it's able to be visited and taken care of. Now, sometimes this is a great thing, sometimes this can be a bit hard, and groups disagree all the time. So depending on what type of church you're a part of, what tradition of Catholicism or Orthodox Christianity or whatever else that you're a part of, this could determine how you interact with these different sites. For example, we're going to go to Capernaum soon, and while we're going to see a big part of Capernaum, there's another church that owns a secondary half of Capernaum that has not been excavated and probably won't be because they're not interested in doing so. So it's kind of a fighting battle here. There's politics and everything, and that includes spaces here in Israel, specifically because, well, there's a ton of it everywhere, and people are always wanting to turn it into tourism spots and make money off of it. This is something that has always left a bad taste in my mouth when I come to Israel. I wish it could be more open and free, but because of the differing beliefs and everything else, it kind of makes it difficult from time to time. Now, the first thing biblically that tells us this could be the spot, along with basically everything else you see here, is that this is by the Sea of Galilee. Behind me, you're seeing the lake that is so fundamental to this area. It's the lifeblood, giving fish, water, and everything else to this area, making sure that people can live here. This is a massive differentiation from the Dead Sea, where basically nothing can live without modern intervention. That doesn't really narrow down this spot. It's just one thing that factors into this could be the spot, right? So let's move on to the next one. But before we get to that, I want to invite you to go to Israel with us. I know that these videos are great and you're learning a lot through this series, but there is nothing like being there in person and seeing exactly what happens in Israel. What there is to learn, and the people to meet, the food to eat, everything. This next trip that I've planned is the cheapest that I can possibly get these trips. Normally they're $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000, but my trip here is less than $4,000. We'd love for you to be a part of it, and if you can all sign up, there's a link down in the description down below, or you can take your phone's camera and point it at this QR code and it'll take you directly to the site. From there, you can check out our brochure and see exactly what we're doing, and you can even save your spot with a $500 deposit. As you're seeing here, we had some of the most amazing moments in our last trip to Israel, and we'd love for you to be part of the next one. So don't wait, sign up today. Spots are limited as always, and let's get back to the video. Now, if this is the place of the Sermon on the Mount, there's not really anything that we would be able to dig into, right? It says that Jesus basically spoke on the side of a hill, and we don't really know where that could be, and there's no building that would show us that, right? Well, for the most part, that's correct. But in Christian tradition, we actually have a long history, several centuries, all the way back to basically the 4th century, that brings us to this place as a traditional spot where people would actually come as a pilgrimage, just like I'm doing right now. So people from all across the nation of Israel and beyond would come here as the spot that the Sermon on the Mount happened. And especially later on, as time went on, things built up and built up and built up to where this church was built to really signify that this is the spot. And while we don't have a building that gives us an inscription that says, hey, this is where the Sermon on the Mount happened, we can actually see that there's a tradition that lasts for a long period of time, for centuries and centuries and centuries long, even back to the 4th century BC. And we know that because there's actually remains of a Byzantine church dedicating this spot to the Sermon on the Mount here at this location. And so with all of those things put together, we have a little bit better of an argument to say that this is the spot. Although a lot of things here are kind of debated, right? We don't know the exact location. We don't know exactly where Jesus stood, and even the way in which he delivered his message is debated here. A lot of people will see this hill and they assume that Jesus is on the top of the hill speaking down to everybody and giving them a message. Maybe that's the best way that his voice would carry. But actually, a lot of people have come to the conclusion and theorized that Jesus was closer to the Sea of Galilee and speaking up the hill to everybody else, almost like an amphitheater, just like we saw at Caesarea Maritima, and we're going to see in other locations like Bet Shean. There's a lot of different things that we could debate here, and we don't really know, but the truth is it doesn't matter because we can still read in Matthew the best sermon ever given. So what do you think? Is this the spot that Jesus gave his message of the Sermon on the Mount, or did it look more like this?
Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life.
Either way, this is an amazing place. They take great care of it, and the history here seems to suggest that somewhere around here is where Jesus gave that sermon. Now, all you have to do is remember, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video talking about the Mount of Beatitudes. We're going to be talking about a lot more very soon. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can catch all of our videos, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.